And welcome, everyone. My name is Michael Watson. I'm one of the Wicked co-founders, and shortly we'll be joined by fellow co-founder Matt Bryant as well. And today we're here to have an indie spotlight on the great comic Crescent City Monsters. And today we're joined by its creator Newton Lavoie. Actually, how do you pronounce your last name, sir? Is it
Yeah, the S is silent,
Oh,
so it's
really?
Lilavoie. Yeah,
Oh, interesting. Oh, that sounds French
yeah,
almost, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yeah. It is French. I'm
Well,
originally from Haiti.
oh, really? Oh, wow, that's amazing, man. I wasn't unaware of that. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Wow. Well, great to have you with us, and I appreciate you taking some time to speak with us today about your
yeah.
comic.
Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome, man. And so, why don't we get started? Why don't we introduce yourself and tell us a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Newton Lilavoie. I'm the creator of Crescent City Monsters. Crescent City Monsters issue number one starts off in 1963 New Orleans, and it follows our hero Jonas. He's a sorcerer, and he's deep seated in that New Orleans supernatural world, and someone in that supernatural world puts a bounty on his head, and he doesn't know who or why, and he's trying to figure it out. And while he's trying to figure that out, the monsters of New Orleans are after him. So I'm going to stop there. That's issue one. It, of course, continues in issue two, and of course, issue three, where we currently have a Kickstarter running for funding the printing of that.
Well, that's awesome, man. It's a when I first saw your Kickstarter, I think the story and the art really drew me in. It seemed like it's something really interesting and kind of different from what I've seen before. And so I definitely think you got a really interesting story. Can you tell us a little about maybe what inspired you to start with that kind of a story?
Yeah. I always tell people this. I was a fan of Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
the comic book, even before the TV series came out. So, and I really loved the comic book, and I wanted to create my own zombie story. So
Nice.
that was kind of the seed for it, and from there it kind of just um, I just added more layers to it. So I'm originally from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and so I wanted to add a little bit more of that Haitian voodoo lore to the story, and I wanted to set it in a place like New Orleans. It has some cultural similarities to Haiti, and there's some historic connections. So I thought, what better place than New Orleans, and it's got that supernatural vibe going on, and so I wanted to combine all of that and into just something unique, something that people have never seen before, and that's how Crescent City Monsters was born.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, man. And I do love the kind of voodoo aspect of the story because you have the kind of the grunches. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, they're called the Grunch. So they're a New Orleans legend.
Nice.
Yeah, when I was doing my research, I wanted to create monsters that people have never heard of before. So
Right.
besides the typical werewolf and the vampire, which will be in this story too. But and once I found the Grunch, I was like, wow, these guys are really something specific to New Orleans. So I had to put them on. One of the interesting things is when you search the Grunch and you do like a Google image search,
Hmm.
the Grunch is nothing like what we actually drew out. And the reason for that is because, well, when you look at online and you do a Google image search, the Grunch online, they look more lizard-like.
Hmm.
Um, but as I was reading and doing research on the Grunch legend, I saw that they sometimes they were described as a group of people that were born from the combination of the outcasts of dwarves and albinos, which was like a really weird kind of story, and they kind of intermingled and formed this the grunge. So I figured, from what I was seeing online and what the story was going with, it didn't match. So I decided to kind of reimagine the grunge myself. So we did that. Hey, you guys still there?
Coming in all right? Am I coming in okay?
Okay, yeah, now I can hear you.
Sorry about that. My
Yeah,
mic we cut
no
out.
worries.
I was just saying, I really love the way you've done the creatures, because you really. And I was actually curious if it was something you and your artist came up with together, or how you guys did that, because they're very grotesque, and you really did, like, all of them, the character, all the creatures, and all the monsters have this like very menacing vibe to them.
Yeah, so it's a combination. So like I said, I did research and I said, all right, the grunt should look, albino slash um, monster like, and kind of dwarf size. And so that's what I told the artist Giancarlo Bernal, the amazing Giancarlo Bernal.
Mhm.
He's absolutely the best artist, the best indie artist out right now. If not just the best artist. Um, so I gave him, sort of the basics of what I wanted, and he just kind of fills in all the details. So he does a great job at, like, just like the teeth for the grunge, for example. If you notice,
Mhm.
all the little details is what he adds. I just kind of give him the basics, like,
Oh
hey,
wow.
this is what I'm envisioning, and he just kind of executes it. And he always does a really great job at that.
Right, not to get too far off from the topic of the monsters, but if I'm not mistaken, your artist is from the Philippines. Is that right?
Right? Yeah. So Gian is from the Philippines. We work mostly online. We've never met.
How did you
um,
kind of come to first start working with him?
I met. Well, I saw him on DeviantArt. I recognize his artwork because I happened to fund one of the projects, a comic book project, Kickstarter comic book projects that he had been an artist on. I think it was The Last Days of Kevin. And so I recognized him, and I saw his portfolio on DeviantArt, and it was really good. So I reached out to him and said, "Hey, are you available?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course."
Mhm.
Um, After I kind of explained the story, and I knew he was a really good artist, but I didn't realize how great of an artist he was until he sent me the first page, and I was just absolutely blown away. I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, the book was always going to be in black and white,
Mm.
but the grayscale work that Gian creates was something that just exceeded my expectations. Because originally, what I told him was, um, "All right, I'm going to give you a page from." I gave him a sample page, a screenshot of a page from The Walking Dead, and said, "Can you the book's gonna be in black and white. Can you grayscale it like this?" And he said, "Sure." And he sent back the first page, and I was like, "Wow, this is some next level." It's blowing Walking Dead artwork away. So yeah, I was really happy and pleased with his artwork. Every time he sends me a page, it's like Christmas all over again.
Yeah, I bet, man. Yeah, and you're right. The grayscale really brings it out, kind of brings it to life almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And what also struck me about the art was knowing he's from the Philippines, how amazingly he's captured the vibe of New Orleans. You know.
Yeah, he does a really good job at that. I give him a lot of references.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, buildings, pictures of the French Quarter.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, even so, the first issue took place in 1963, so I sent him a lot of references, like a reference for Jonas's motorcycle, um, the club that him and his band perform in. A lot of references. Some of it he looked up himself, like the cars. But yeah, so I wanted to, and some of it we kind of uh, we took some creative liberties with. So, like for example, Jonas's outfit. Um, when I was looking into it in that time period, I don't think the clothes was as tight as he's wearing it now. It was a
Oh,
little it was a little bit looser.
Yeah, yeah.
And they typically wore jackets. I don't think they just wore, like, he just has a shirt and slacks and
Some suspenders on.
suspenders. Yeah, so they typically wore like a whole suit. But I wanted to kind of give him still kind of a modern classic edge to it. So um, I just went with, I kind of looked at that whole um, what do you call it? Not hippie, but what's the hipsters, right?
Mm, mm,
That whole movement with the guys, they dress in, that
uh,
look. So I wanted to give him that look. So I send Gene references to that instead of using the actual 1963's look.
no, I think that was pretty smart. Yeah, and the can you tell us maybe a little bit about Jonas as a character?
Yeah. So when I start the story, it's not really an origin story. It's more like, okay, he's already gotten his powers. There's no like, you know, this is how I became, a sorcerer. He's his family is deep seated in that um, supernatural world, like I said. So he was born into a family of sorcerers. He's got these powers that makes him really unique. He's got and just a little background story. It's not really in the book, but it'll be explained a little bit. Maybe in issue 3, it'll touch on it. But he has this connection with uh, voodoo loa called Dambala, sometimes known as the sky god. He and Dambala sometimes is represented as a snake or intertwining snake. So he's got a connection with snakes or serpents in particular. So
Oh, it
he,
makes sense. Yeah, with the way that he there's a situation where he kind of gets harassed by a cop, and he has an interesting way of dealing with it.
yeah, yeah. And he's got, so he is like, snakes is his thing. He's also got, other magical powers. He can control, things like wind. He can do different kind of spells. And in particular, when he's fighting, he's got these he can project these magical energy bolts if he wants to, and use them as weapons. And the way I wanted his powers to work, or kind of represent his powers. Um, so while I'm a big fan of the in the comics, when someone's using their powers, you'll see their hands glowing, or the circular, you know,
Kind of like
a
aura.
sphere around it. Yeah. I wanted to kind of avoid that, because I wanted to make it a little bit feel like um, it's more grounded, even though it's magic, more
Mm.
grounded in, like, in real world. So like when he uses his powers, you'll rarely see like any like energy coming from him. You'll just see the results of him using his powers. And so that's one thing I did with Jonas. And as a character, he's um, he's the kind of guy who he just can't help himself, but he always wants to try to do right, um, no matter what. And he's always trying to defend people. He's that kind of like that heroic guy without really being a heroic guy. He's one of those like born leaders,
Mm.
one of those people who people just naturally kind of gravitate to. He a little mature for his age, while he was growing up. Um, so the things that happened to him is is something that he he's gonna have to learn how to cope with, because all his life, he's been this hero, this person that's people look up to. Everybody thinks he's cool, but then that all that is taken away from him. He's like his powers, everything is taken away from him, and he's no longer that person anymore. So he has to learn how to deal with that, and um, let it go, and understand, how he becomes a new person.
Right,
Um,
and without getting too much into spoilers for those who haven't read it, he kind of goes through a bit of a transformation, you might say, and ends up in a place he's not really familiar with. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he ends up in a place he's not familiar with. So I really wanted to put him in a situation where he he's he's falling from, from the top, and he's in the absolute, not even the bottom. He's just like on the bottom of the bottom, like, and how he deals with that, because, like I said, even the strongest person mentally, they'll break down when faced with some tough situations. But how does he push through it, with given the ordeal that he's going through.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah, and I think people can really connect with that as well as a character. I think it's something that will help push forward the story.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. And it's really cool to hear about Jonas. And we were we were just looking at some art from Jonas, some of the art from your artist there. I love the swords or the energy weapons as you call them. How he's able to kind of wield them in the first issue. The action was just so awesome, man. Like it was interesting. I have to ask: are either you or your artist a fan of Berserk by any chance?
Did you say Berserk?
Yeah.
No, I don't know if Gene is.
I got some Berserk vibes from the action, just with how intense and visceral the fighting was. It was like, oh wow,
Oh,
so cool, man! Like it really it popped out to me.
yeah, I'm a big fan of. It's funny because I'm a big fan of like two extremes, right? So
Mm,
I like stories that have like a slow burn,
mm,
that takes its time to develop. But at the same time, I'm a big action fan. I just love like things that have action.
yeah, man.
So I wanted to kind of include both. Um, I think you could kind of see that in the stories, because you'll start reading along, and then all of a sudden, boom, like 3 or 4 pages of just pure action. And that's what I really like to do. I like to put a lot of action in my books, when I can. I try not to um, overdo it. You and I do admit sometimes when I'll write a script, if I feel like there's not enough action, I'm kind of tempted to just add more action. But sometimes I have to kind of pull back and say, you know what, um, I think the story will just stand by itself. So yeah, I
Kind of
mean,
balance, really, between the two.
what's that?
Kind of a nice balance between action and more character driven moments. It sounds like.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Now I want to pull up some more art here because this is one of the characters that I personally love from from the whole rogues gallery, as you might call it. But this is probably one of the scariest grunch I think that's out there. And you're gonna have to remind me of what his name is. But what is this? What character is this name? What is his name?
Oh, hello.
Am I coming through okay?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was my computer started to echo, but yeah. So so yeah, he's not a grunge. He's a
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
no grunge. The
Hey,
grunts are usually tiny. Like
so I have to ask because then just to clarify for me and maybe for some of the other readers, because the grunts are the small ones. What about
yeah.
like the female leader? So what is she something else then?
No, she's also a grunt. She's a little bit bigger than the
He's
average. But
something else than a grunch.
yeah, he's something else than a grunt. He's another sorcerer. He's more of like a swamp guy.
Yeah, I know. I love the vibe, man. He's a creepy character for sure. He's
Yeah. He's called Ron. He's that's his name. He's a sorcerer. Also, he's more like that. Um, so they belong to New Orleans. In this story, New Orleans has a clan of sorcerers, and this clan originally in the clan, the Grunch was not part of the clan. In fact, they were just treated as pests, right? So the Grunch, as in the ecosystem, in their magical ecosystem, the grunts, they actually they're like what they consider bottom feeders, right? So what happens is, like in New Orleans, it's one of those nexus magical places that builds up energy. And what happens is these little worm like creatures kind of infestate New Orleans, and the grunch, they actually eat these little worms, and they're worms that not you human beings really can't see them, but they're just like kind of everywhere in New Orleans, and the grunts go around, kind of hunting them and eating them. And the worms, the reason why the grunts are important is because they eat the worms, and the worms actually cause interference with the magic of the New Orleans sorcerers. So it's like this necessary ecosystem. Like the grunge, the supernaturals of New Orleans need the grunge because the grunge eat these little worms that interferes with their magic, and by the same time, the what's that?
They put up with them. They tolerate the grunge.
Right, exactly. So and they were kind of like looked down on them, but it wasn't until later that Queenie says, you know what, let me she comes up with this plan where she basically tells the grunge to stop eating, right? Which is they're pretty much going to starve themselves. And then uh, in by doing that, though, there's an infestation of these worms and these energy worms, and it interferes and causes some even some discomfort to the supernaturals of New Orleans. And Queenie kind of negotiates with them and says, "Hey, we're going to go on this hunger strike, and these worms are going to interfere with you until you give us the more respect or a seat at the table." And so it's like basically they went on a hunger strike, and Queenie was able to actually get them to be officially part of the New Orleans supernatural clan. But they were still kind of despised. Um, and so that's a little bit of a background into how the grunge fit into the New Orleans.
Community.
Yeah.
Okay, so interesting. So in that case, it kind of makes sense why this character is a more of a wizard or a more magic user, because they mention that in the story they mentioned that using kind of dark magic, I believe, kind of can corrupt you. Is that right? It kind of changes you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wanted so the two kids that you see there, they're sorcerers too, and they're or they're supernaturals, I should say, not really sorcerers. Maybe, well, the sister is a sorceress, but the younger boy Box, he's not really interested in magic. He doesn't really like magic and doesn't like to deal with it much. But yeah, their parents, they're supernaturals too, because they have they're born with powers inherited from their parents, and but their parents always told them that there's a point where you can't really use your powers, or it corrupts you and makes you into a monster. So they try to avoid, like, for example, they're street performers, and they don't really use their magic for, like, to take cash out of ATM because
Mhm.
they know that like there's a certain line that you shouldn't cross, because magic has a way of balancing itself out. There's nothing that comes for free.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. And speaking of these new characters, you kind of have a very big cast of characters. It seems it's not just necessarily about Jonas. You kind of have more characters coming along. Would you consider this Jonas's story, or is this more of a ensemble piece?
So it is Jonas's story. So my plan was to create a story about Jonas, but like every good story, like every movie, every book, or TV series that I've seen, what makes it a really great story or movie is the fact that not only is the hero really interesting, but the supporting characters are just as cool. Sometimes it's even cooler than the main character. So I wanted to build a world of characters that people found interesting, not just the hero, but all the side characters too. So it's going to be interesting because I hope the readers just hang on, because throughout the book, sometimes Jonas will only get like maybe like 6 pages, he because the other characters are coming into the story, and you have to understand their role into the story and how they're gonna show up. Maybe in like they'll show up in issue 2, but probably won't show up again until issue 4. But you've read about them in issue 2, and you know what their role is. So everything comes back. So it kind of like goes back and forth. It's not. It's gonna be a story where you definitely won't be able to like if you pick up from you would have to read it sequentially, and you probably could pick it up in maybe like the middle of the story, but you would still have to go back. You'd probably miss a lot of other things that are involved. So the original the idea is that I want to try to break Todd McFarlane recently just broke that 300 record.
Really?
So
Wow. Huh.
so whatever his record is, I want to break that.
Uh,
so
that's
my plan is to so instead of basic so Todd McFarlane has Spawn, right? um and what I wanted to do is create a world where I'm not dependent on just like one character. So that's why it's called Crescent City Monsters, even though originally the plan is Jonas is going to be the main character um for the first, I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 chapters. But then I want to be able to create side stories or do side stories on the other characters that were involved in the story. So maybe there'll be like, I don't know, another 10 issues on some other character on some other story arc, and then another 10 on somebody else, and then combine all that into one other story with those two characters. Just kind of build it that way, um, in a way where the story arcs just kind of build on each other, and there is really just it becomes a story about just not one character but multiple characters.
just kind of, yeah, that's really interesting. Kind of like you've seen a lot of. I don't know if you're a fan of anime at all, but I see a lot of times that in anime where they're maybe centered on one character, but they have all these other side characters, and they're not afraid to really get into the background and the details on all their different stories and stuff. Kind of make it a more full, rich world.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And actually, this Forcer Comics actually points out kind of like that as well. I've always liked franchises like X Men or Transformers where multiple protagonists are possible, rather than being one person like Batman. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But something that speaking of Batman, and we kind of talked a little bit earlier about a rogues gallery, and something that I love about, and I'm not going to spoil anything for people who haven't read it, but at the end of issue 2, we get a great cliffhanger reveal of some interesting new characters that maybe we'll be seeing some of in issue 3. I hope, because it was one of the coolest reveals. I swear, like when I opened that page and I saw all the characters on there, I was like, oh, my God, this looks amazing. Like I want right now. You know what I mean? So like, is there anything you can tease us about issue 3? Anything you're willing to kind of let go? Anything you can tell us?
Yeah. Well, so G and my artist, it's not a spoiler, but it's I guess to kind of taper expectations.
Hmm.
He asked me, "Do you think people will be mad that you didn't continue from the last scene on chapter 2?" I was like, "Nah."
Nah. Oh, that's hilarious.
I
So
was
we're
like,
still like
"Nah."
a bit of time before we get to see those guys coming back, huh?
No, well, they'll make it back in issue 4.
Okay, okay.
They'll definitely make it back in this because I had to.
Oh, that's funny.
It's tricky because I have to juggle because there's different storylines, so I have to juggle it back and forth, and I realize I can't focus. It's just so people can follow the story. I can't focus on too many storylines in one book, because I tried that one time and I was reading it and I was like, oh, this is too much. Gonna I was like, this is too much. This is a comic book, it's not a movie. Um, because as a comic book reader, I understand what you can and what you can't do in terms of pushing the boundaries of the content and how dense you can make it.
Mm,
Um, before people are just like, whoa, their heads are spinning, because so
Right, right, yeah. I totally get that. There's a fine line between complex and confusing. You got to walk that line very carefully.
oh yes, I'm looking at Neo Store's Star Productions. Yeah, he does mention that Spawn does have a lot of engaging supporting characters. Yeah, I guess Twitch and what's the other d- detective's name? It's Twitch and
In Spawn.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm actually not too familiar with that series myself. I'll
Oh,
probably read that eventually. Um, I know it's like a classic, but there's a couple detective characters in that.
right, right. Yeah, I think sometimes yeah, Neo Star might be right. I think sometimes they do make a few story arcs with the supporting characters.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, yeah. No, I always like to see that as well, and your comic is no exception to that. Now, why don't we take a look at your newest campaign, which is out now on Kickstarter, and we'll take a little bit a look at that and see what you got going on.
Yeah, sure.
Now, it's a shorter campaign, and so it's how many days left does it have to go?
So I'm looking at the page now. It says I have 5 days to go, but it's really more like four.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're at oh wow, so you're very close to your goal as well. So you're at 6,000 $68 out of 6,500 goal. So
Yeah, we're close. Yeah, so almost $400 left to go.
excellent.
So yeah, I'm excited about that. I definitely think we'll reach our goal.
I mean,
So
yeah,
yeah.
I would be surprised if you guys didn't make it past that. And do you guys have any stretch goals or anything like that in mind at this time?
No, nothing in mind just yet. I'm just
Work
waiting to just get goal first.
I get that, man.
Yeah, and then I'll come up with some stretch goals. Because it may be a little tight. Because if it takes 2 days to get stretch goals, to actually make our goal, then we probably only have 3 days to
Mm,
do a
okay.
stretch goal, and then then
Yeah.
I would have to figure out
What are you gonna do for it? And
yeah what I would have to do for it. But we'll see how it works out. Usually, and so it's funny because usually they recommend that you plan everything out on your Kickstarter, what are your stretch goals. But I always wait till the till I actually pass my goal to actually think about what I'm going to do for a
oh
stretch
really?
goal.
Oh,
Yeah,
you need that for your first two campaigns as well.
yeah, I kind of winged it. I mean, it wasn't like um I totally winged it. Like I had like some default stuff that I've seen from other Kickstarters. Like a free print or something like that. Um, to add to the tiers once a certain goal is reached. But this one's a little trickier because of some of the tiers and uh, some international. There've been some people from other countries who's expressed interest in the higher tiers, and so shipping internationally is really expensive, and it affects if I add, like, for example, if I add a print, that 1 ounce can go from a shipping rate of $25 to $48. So I'm kind of like trying to still kind of get a feel for what I'm gonna do with that.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. Now we have we can see here we have the regular cover and the variant cover, which you're offering both here on this. And
yeah.
I can't wait to know. Again, I love these characters, so I can't wait to know more about the Samedi characters. I believe that was what the what, can you give us a little more insight on that? Obviously, not spoil anything, but maybe kind of giving the inspiration for where that character came from.
Which character is that?
The voodoo guy. I forget.
Oh, okay, Samdi, right?
Yes,
Baron
yeah, yeah,
Samdi.
there you go. Yes,
Okay, yeah. So
that's the
if
word.
you're looking at the covers, Baron Samdi is on both covers, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's funny that you mentioned it because uh, on Facebook, a few people have been like, "Oh, this is Shadow Man." I was, I was like, I can see where you could think
Oh,
it's Shadow Man, but actually, this is Baron Samdi,
Mm.
and they haven't really read the book, so I guess they think that's the main character
Oh,
because he's
interesting.
on the cover.
Mhm.
So I try to explain to them that no, it's not. It's not. He's not the main character, and yes, I could see how you could think he looks like Shadow Man, but Shadow Man is based on Baron Sam. He's kind of based on the look of Baron Samdi, so it's not like you know. So it's
I think
like
the other way around, really.
yeah. So so that's Baron Samdi. He's a lower of the dead. Um, so we'll see how his relationship with Jonas is because Jonas's situation. And then you have another Loa on the regular cover. The guy right in front of him. That's Papa Legba, another Voodoo Loa. Now he's a Voodoo Loa. They call him Master of the Crossroads because
Mhm.
he opens worlds and dimensions. His job really is to open the world of open the world of Voodoo Loas to humans, so that humans can talk to Loas like Baron Samdi. Um, so he's really well known in some stories. Like authors have used him. In fact, he's in there's the TV series American Stories. Have you ever heard? What's that?
Yeah, I know the show. I didn't know he was in one of the seasons though.
Yeah, he is. But they messed up real bad.
Oh
So
no.
so
Oh, that's too bad.
so pop.
Oh
So you see Papa Legba, right? They made him look like Baron Samdi, which it
no,
would
really.
yeah. So like, in fact, let me Google it now because I want to make sure this is still the case. But if you Google Baron Samdi, let me see Baron Samdi.
You know,
No, I'm sorry, Papa Legba.
you said
He
Papa Legbo, you said?
yeah, Legba.
See.
Uh, let's see. And you go to images, you'll see
Hmm.
he looks like Baron Samdi, and that's like way off. Like that's not even like that's not even right.
Okay, is this what you're referring to here?
Hold on, let me. It was yeah. So they got that absolutely wrong. Like,
Mm.
and that's stuff like that really pisses me off. It's like
In the historical research quite right.
yeah. So now when you do a Google search and you press you look up Papa Legba, that's not how. That's not really because Papa Legba really typically he's an old guy smoking a pipe, and usually he has a dog next to him. Um, kind of look. Uh, I changed it a little bit because I'm a big fan of Papa Legba, the Loa, the character. So I'll probably have him in a lot more of my other stories besides Crescent City Monsters. So I didn't want him to always look the same. So in Crescent City Monsters, instead of old guy with a pipe, I kind of just wanted to kind of give him like that Yoda Jedi look.
Mhm.
I'm not sure why I did that, but
Uh,
I was like, I kind of like that. So I
that's
was like,
awesome.
yeah.
Looks like Neostar in the chat says, okay, backed and shared. Thank you, Neostar. Much appreciated for backing the book, man.
Oh yeah, thank you.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And so on a quick side note, I remembered where and I hope I'm pronouncing it. It's Baron Sam D, is it right? Sam D.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
He was in the show Grimm. I don't know if anyone was a fan of that police procedural show Grimm, but he actually was played by what's the actor's name here? Oh shoot, he's been on a bunch of stuff, but no, yeah, I really love how you bring in mythology and myth and all these legends and stuff. Because, I'm a huge fan of that stuff because one of my favorite writers is Neil Gaiman, and I really love how he handles all those kind of myths and legends and stuff. So it's really interesting to see how you've incorporated all these things into your writing. And is that something that you've always been interested in, or how did you come to kind of bring that into it?
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, I like mythology. I used to just like, well, I was about to say like just like every other kid, but it
Yeah.
might be a nerd thing. But I'd always read, Greek and North mythologies, and was always into Hercules and Thor. And well, it was mostly Greek, really, Greek mythology. So I was a big fan of that um, when I was younger. So yeah, I wanted to incorporate that. So what I wanted to do too is New Orleans has uh, what they call like a Creole culture, right? And the New Orleans Creole culture really is like a blend of, you know, African, European, and Native American culture. They take a little bit from everything. So I wanted to kind of incorporate that into the story too, right? So, for example, Jonas, he practices what I call Creole magic, which is like a blend of all of that. So I wanted to mix African uh, uh, mythology with European mythology and some Native American mythology. So, like for example, that character Bunin. Um, I'm
Mm,
not sure if you know, but he's actually um, Odin's raven. So
I got
Odin had two. Yeah, he
that.
has he, he has two ravens, and Munin is one of them. And his Munin's backstory is that um, he's the last survivor of Ragnarok.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's kind of like a family ally of Jonas and his family, because like centuries ago, the actual beast or the monster that killed all the gods. He was injured in the battle of Ragnarok. Right? It's not like he was like, oh, I just slaughtered all these gods and I'm just gonna walk away. No, I was. He's like, he barely survived Ragnarok himself. So Munin kind of hunted him down, and Jonas's father helps him kill the beast that killed all the Norse gods. And from there, Jonas's family was like allies, like for centuries to Munin. So Munin has this attachment to Jonas and his family. So I wanted to kind of incorporate things like that. Just different little segments from different parts of the world and combine it into that Creole culture.
And Moonin is actually joined by a white owl. And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I was a little more familiar with Moon and as a character, but I wasn't familiar with the white owl.
Yeah, so the white owl really doesn't really make a lot of doesn't really make it into the story just yet. She's not gonna make it into the story until later on.
Mm,
So I didn't really develop
okay. Oh, really? Okay, interesting. Because I was just so struck by the dichotomy of the two characters. They're really interesting, like interesting pairing. I thought, you know.
Yeah, I thought so too. I like the idea. It's funny because it, it's like the ideas really came to me as I was kind of just going along, because the series started as a webcomic, and I'm starting out. No one's really reading it. No one's coming to my website and checking it out. If maybe a few people here and there might stumble across it. So I'm kind of winging the story as I'm going along, and so like like by page like 2, I'm like, let's now actually no, I didn't totally wing it, but I knew. So like in the first page you'll see of chapter 1, you'll see on top of the house, you'll see a Munin and the owl um on top of the house, right? And then I figured, what, let's do a scene where the owl and the Munin comes down and talks to Jonas. That way by page 3 people are kind of like, whoa, what's going on? There's like talking, Raven's thing. So like because I start off, you know, in Jonas with his family, and it's, you know, it's even though even though the conversation kind of mentions magic, you know, it still kind of comes off as kind of ordinary, right? Like, you know, guy in his house and things. So I knew I needed to capture the audience's attention, you know, by the third page. So you know, I was like, I'll have him speak to these ravens and owls. And I was
Uh,
like,
well, definitely
third
did the
page.
trick,
So,
man.
you know, I was like, I'll have him speak to these ravens and owls.
Like, I definitely love the two characters, and I'm actually going to share them right now on the art. Let's see 1 second. Here there. So yeah, here's the two birds as they come in down, and actually have they have their introduction cards there. So Hibu is the name of the other one. Even in Hibu. And
Yeah, Hebrew. So I kind of cheated with that because Hebrew is just the French word for owl.
hey man, I bought it. I didn't see it how to play some more. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Some part of the thing I don't know, but I'm learning it right now. So yeah,
Yeah,
you could totally incorporate it in and make it work. You know.
yeah. I
I,
figured that, you know, the American audience wouldn't really like figure out that, you know, I was unoriginal with the name.
Man, that's brutal. And we see some more of that striking art there, some more of the kind of the gray tones that you're talking about, and it
Yeah.
just looks awesome, man. Now going back to the Kickstarter campaign real quick, I want to go over the different tiers and perks that you have available, kind of what you have to offer essentially.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so first up, let's see, where is it? So you have the $5, and that's your digital goodness. So I'm assuming this is you get digital copies.
Yeah, for issues 1 through 3.
Nice, nice. That's cool that you're giving people the chance to catch up on the other issues as well.
Yeah.
I always like to see that. Then the first is here's the next one. We have $15 or more. And what do you get with this one?
That one is, I believe, is that the third issue or the first issue? Hold on, let me look at my screen because yours is a little tiny. Okay, yeah, yeah, first, yeah, that's the first issue, number one, and
Nice.
then the next 15 is number 3, regular cover, um, and then the next one is for 20 is the variant cover for issue 3. And the reason I usually the variant covers is a little more expensive is that just it's more of a collector's thing. So what I do is the variant covers that I print on via Kickstarter, I print less of them. So like let's say I print 1,000 copies total, I'll probably only print maybe like 300 variant covers out of that 1,000,
Hmm.
and then I'll never print that variant cover ever again.
Oh wow.
So like for example, issue number 1, uh, I pretty much I don't sell anymore because I'm down to only like maybe like 40 or 50 copies. Well, I should say the first printing of issue number 1 I don't sell anymore because I'm down to like maybe 40 or 50 copies. And the issue number 1 now I do not sell. I have I had an online store, and I don't sell the variant cover anymore. I don't make a second printing of the
Oh, wow.
variant cover. So
So it's pretty
um
expensive for these campaigns, really.
yeah, it's really for the campaigns, and it's really for the collectors too, because I know there are a lot of comic book collectors, and you know I want to make sure that if they do buy a variant cover, that it's really rare. That like
There's a like there's
yeah, it's,
value to it, really.
yeah, exactly. So that the collectors has some value to it, so that if you buy a variant cover, it's even though it's a little bit more expensive, you know that there's a lot less of it, and that I won't print that cover ever again.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I personally myself I picked up the variant cover on this go around. I in particular liked the kind of the pose they had there with the two characters. Thought that was fun, man.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, what I decided to do with this variant cover is kind of do a throwback to the first one. So in the first,
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
yeah,
I thought it was cool. It was a cool like variation on it though, to see that other character in that kind of a similar pose. You know,
yeah, yeah.
it was a
Thanks.
nice touch, man. And so then we go on to the next tier, which is the $25 tier.
Yeah, so that includes
Our
both
first,
the regular and the variants with the PDFs.
so this
And
is this our first physical tier then, where you actually get the physical print comics?
oh no, the first physical one's the $15
Oh,
one.
really? Is okay. So
Yeah,
the ones we were just looking at, those are all you get the physical issue 3. Do you get a physical 1 and 2, or just a digital 1 and 2 with that
for which tier?
for the $15 tier? Sorry.
Yeah, for the $15 tier, you get a physical book.
But is
There's
that,
a, there's
sorry?
only
Oh, I was just curious. For this, are you offering any tiers in where you're offering like issue 1 and 2 physical, or you are strictly offering digital this go around for 1 and 2?
oh for 1 and 2, yeah. There's a tier that collects issues 1 to 3.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's no,
I must
I
have
didn't.
myself over digital.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, there's only one digital tier, and that collects all 3 issues.
I see. Okay.
Um. And
And
then everything else is a physical tier.
okay, excellent. And so then in we left off at the $25 one, I believe. So
Yeah.
this
So
both both covers then.
yeah, $25 both covers. That's along with the the PDFs. Every tier includes the all 3 PDFs
Excellent.
and 2 character cards.
And what can you tell us about the character cards?
So far, the character cards are going to be the werewolves that appear in issue 3 and Kingsley, I
Kingsley,
believe. Actually, no, I'm sorry, not Kingsley.
Queenie.
Let's see. What did you know? I'll make it a surprise.
Like,
No, actually, it's Papa Legba.
oh, really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember learning a little bit about Papa Legba when I was reading. I believe they meant he comes up a little bit in American Gods, but novel. So yeah, I can't wait to learn more about more about him in your next issue.
yeah. So then, let's see, what we're up to 35.
Yes, that's right. Yes, right.
Okay, yeah, 35 is all 3 issues with the character cards and the PDFs. And then looks like we're sold out of the 55, which is collector level 1.
Okay.
So that was the collector's level because that included the first printing.
Oh wow. Dang.
Yeah,
Sold
yeah,
out. Dang, that went
yeah,
fast, didn't it?
yeah.
Wow.
That went fast.
Mm.
Um,
So
and
this
then the
one is a little bit interesting though. This gets a little bit different, doesn't it?
what the
$85.
collect
Yeah, for the
yeah, the $85 one is another collector too. That's level 2 because that includes the not just the first printing of the regular cover, but also the first printing of the variant cover,
oh
which
wow.
is yeah, which is even we have less of that
Too
too.
fast. Jeez. Dang, yeah, those are about all gone right there. So
Yeah, those are almost gone too.
definitely jump on that one if you guys are trying to get some first printings, and especially of that variant cover. Which he said earlier, he's not printing any these variants again. So this is really your only chance to get that here. So
Yeah,
that's a good one here.
and looks like yeah, level 3 is no longer available also.
Really,
I
what was
think
free?
so that includes uh both both first printings for issue 1 and then the second printing of issue 1. That's basically everything. It's like
Like the whole kit and caboodle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You get 3 versions of issue 1, 2 versions of issue 2, 2 versions of issue 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that one sold out as well.
yeah, that one sold out too.
And we move on to the next level up, which is the $120 tier level. And what do you get with this one? This is kind of like a bulk or comic store package.
Yeah, it's a retail level. So if you're a comic books shop and you want to buy in bulk, so you get you get it basically half off retail price.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's a good deal, man.
yeah,
And
and
then
then
we have the ultimate tier here.
yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. No one's.
That's all
But it's a tier that what's that?
Oh no, I just was saying no one's picked up on it yet, huh?
No, 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 no. But but the higher tiers are pretty tough. I mean, I
It's hard
really
to tell those, I would imagine,
yeah, it's really tough to sell a higher tier. But they say put it out there. I've actually sold at tiers that were like about 200
Oh wow, yeah.
before. I'm not sure if it was 250 though. But yeah, this at this tier you get what I do is a comic book script review, and you send me your comic book script, and I'll take a look at it and kind of give you my feedback, my very honest feedback.
So
of,
you'll be brutally honest, is what
y-
you're promising.
yeah, really.
And then the
Like,
best criticism comes from being honest, you know.
yeah, I'll tell you things that your mama won't.
That's funny, man. Oh,
Yes.
that's awesome, man. That sounds like a great opportunity for some people who are looking for some feedback, especially in the indie community. So, yeah, I definitely think if you're a writer, you should definitely check that out.
Yeah,
It'd be a good opportunity. So, and it helps a good cause making the book happen. So it's a win-win situation, really.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And then looks like yeah, these are the ones that are all gone. We kind of mentioned some of those earlier. A couple of those ones that are sold out. But we get to see a little bit of the art as well. A little preview from issue 3 coming out. Looks like we're introduced some maybe some new characters here, maybe some old characters returning here. I see as well. Um, some awesome tattoos going on. Is that a snake tattoo then?
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Kind of
snake
goes back
tattoo.
into the background of his affinity for snakes and kind of what's going on with that as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited I'm really excited. I want people to take a look at issue 3 and see where I'm going with this story because it's it's gonna be something.
Well, it's interesting. 'Cause it's funny because you mentioned earlier that you were kind of flying by the seat of your pants, so to speak, when you're writing it. Whereas
Mhm.
I didn't get that sense when I was reading it at all. Quite the opposite. When I was reading it, I got the sense of, in my head, I was thinking, "Wow, he's planned everything out. He knows exactly what this is doing." Because building momentum and it feels like you're layering so many interesting elements on, and I just can't wait to see where you go with it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not totally flying by the seat of my pants. I mean, I do
Mm,
know where the story's going, but I do fill in a lot of details sometimes
mm,
as we go on. Because the amazing thing is that Gene's artwork really inspires me.
oh, that's
Like
cool.
once I see his artwork, sometimes it'll just you know bring something out in my head. Like, oh, you know what? We should also do this.
Mm,
It's like
mhm.
So yeah, he's just amazing. He's
Yeah, his
and
art
I
is good.
yeah, I think we kind of like we have the synergy where we kind of feed off each other
Mm.
because he's always telling me, "Oh, I can't wait to see what you write next on the
Oh,
script," and I'm like, "I can't wait to see what you draw."
well, that's the kind of the best thing you can have when you guys are both excited to be working on the project and to get scripts and art back from each other. I mean, that is perfect way to do it, man.
Yeah, and his artwork really is a great match for the way I write because his artwork is very cinematic.
Mm,
His angles are crazy. Um, and yeah, he catches expressions so well. It's
right.
funny, like one of my favorite pages that he's done ever wasn't even really an action page. It was a
Really.
page in the first issue where Jonas is talking to his girlfriend, and it's just like a regular conversation, but the gestures that he puts behind the characters while they're talking it just blew me away. I was like, wow. It was like
Mm.
like it felt like my dialogue was coming to life. So
Almost feel like I know exactly the moment you're talking about, man. Because there's a
yeah,
moment in the first issue when I was reading, I was like, there's like 3 or 4 panels, and I feel like there's no dialogue, and it's just like you read the expression, but you can still read their emotions just by the way that they're looking at each other. I was like,
yeah,
damn, dude, this is pretty incredible visual stuff here.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is really cool that you guys synergize with each other so well like that.
yeah. Thank you.
Well, that's awesome, man. The art's looking great. Everything's looking awesome for this new issue. I'm super excited about it, man. Um, this looks, obviously you have a lot of great tears, and got an example of what the character cards might look like there as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I want to give a big shout out to Maya Williams, who's on the chat right now. What's up?
Mm, thank you for joining us,
Yeah, thank you.
and awesome. And so we have about 5 days left, and actually this is kind of a cool shot here. This kind of gives you a shot here of some of the other stuff you can grab here with the issue one and the variant, and as well as issue two as well. I believe the issue two variant's not up for grabs at this moment because unless I misread that. Uh,
Yeah, and I'd have to look at
Sold
the
out,
the
and it was
tiers
sold
again to
out,
see
yeah,
if.
yeah. But I definitely know a lot of these are up for grabs, and they're beautiful, beautiful covers, and a lot of great stuff to look forward to. Um, and if you're more of a digital, you can also go the digital route as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff to grab. And
Yeah, yeah.
so again, we have 5 days left on that to back. And do you have is there an estimated uh, date that you're looking to kind of finish and start shipping out these books?
Yeah, so I have a date of May 2020
Nice.
of sending out the books. I'm going to try to send it out sooner, um, as soon as possible. So cross your fingers. Maybe it may be April, but definitely May the latest.
Not too bad at all.
Yeah, yeah, because it's mostly done. Gian has to just do the lettering,
Oh, that's
which is
awesome.
which is amazing because Gian does the lettering too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. The funny thing about that is originally he wasn't going to. He was like, I don't really do lettering, but you know what? I'll just put these placeholders for you. And as he put the placeholders in, I was like, wow, this looks absolutely professional. So I was like, you know what, Gene, can you letter for me?
That's amazing. He does a really good job of it.
Yeah, and he said that wasn't his thing, so I guess maybe he picked it up in a day or two
Wow.
and made it his thing. But
He
yeah,
definitely
he's
sounds the kind of guy who has a lot of skills and whatnot.
yeah. He turns out that before he started doing comics full time, he was a graphic designer. So
Wow.
yeah, he's got a good eye.
It makes sense then, and why he would kind of be good at that. Yeah. Uh, Now I can't find an example off the top, but there's a really interesting thing he did with the lettering when he's casting magical spells, you might call them. Um, it's kind of like almost like they're uttering a different language or something, some sort of lost forgotten language.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a set of character languages that I came up with, and the way Gene lettered it was absolutely amazing. I was like, I didn't even tell him to letter it like that. He just came up with that, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. I love that.
I know it looks so cool. Yeah, it really was quite interesting to see that, and even just the way the balloon looked, or the word balloon, it was so like kind of jagged, and it was like almost it kind of gave you this vibe of like this is a dark spell. This is different from just someone talking, which I thought was
Yeah,
a touch.
yeah, and yeah, I decided to go with the spell casting because again, I was trying to do things as you know a little different. I mean, spell casting is not really unique. I mean, in comics, it's been done before, but I wanted to kind of just you know keep it, give it that magical feel, and I think spell casting has more of like a magical supernatural feel to it.
Oh, definitely, man. Yeah, and Dan in the chat says this art is astounding, and I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's amazing, and honestly, it's not just the art that's amazing. I really think you've done some really incredible work here, crafting your story and your world, and building these characters. And I'm super excited to see kind of where you're all taking it because it starts off really strong and it just builds from there. Issue two, I thought built on the world and expanded on everything in a really great way. kind of leading to where we're going with. Okay, I see where we're going with the main story here. I think, and so it's going to be really interesting to see in issue 3 as that kind of develops more.
Yeah,
Um,
thank
do you
you.
you're welcome, man. And is there anything you can tell us maybe about the future of your series? Anything you can tease us a little bit about?
Yeah, expect to see a lot more characters. The world is just gonna blow up in terms of um, what Crescent City Monsters is. You're gonna see so many characters and how they fit into each other and the interaction. We're gonna have s- your your um your vampires. We're gonna have your werewolves. We're gonna have witches. We're
Awesome.
also gonna have like unique characters. So, from issue 2, that last back panel. I'm not sure if you remember, but the really
Oh yeah.
tall,
Oh yeah.
um,
Well,
looking
yeah.
monsters with the hoods and masks. Characters like that. You'll see. The usual suspects. Werewolves and vampires. But you'll also see a lot of different characters and how they fit into the Crescent City Monsters world. So yeah, a lot more characters to come, and a lot more.
Uh, I cannot wait for that because again, going back to that was like one of my favorite reels, and those characters you mentioned, the ones in the back, the masks, and when I saw that, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my! I was like terrifying. Like I was like, I want to know what is that about? Like it looks like incredibly scary and really interesting. So yeah,
Yeah,
you've got all these characters and stuff to look forward to exploring, and it may be Jonas's story, but that doesn't mean that there is not a lot of other stuff going on here in New Orleans to look
yeah,
forward.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great, man. And is there anything as we start wrapping up here? Is there anything you want to maybe tell your fans or people who are considering backing your book?
Yeah, so if you're looking for something really unique, this story is something that you're gonna enjoy. So it's even though I call it a supernatural noir story, it really is just a great story. And I'm not saying that because I wrote it, but it really is. I mean, the feedback that I've been getting from it has been amazing. So, and I can tell from people's reaction that they're really getting attached to the stories. The way they talk about the characters and the artwork is just something that I see that people are really just really really loving. So I think it's not specific to somebody who just is into horror or supernatural. It's just an all general good story and great artwork.
Something to find for everyone, any comics fan out there can pick up.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on to talk with us tonight. Where can people follow you online so that they can check out more of what you got going on?
yeah. So on the social medias, you can find me at Dream Fury Comics. That's both on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we also have a website, dreamfurycomics.com.
DreamFuryComics.com.
Yep.
Nice, man. And I believe there may be a preview you can check out there as well. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, thanks for reminding me. I almost totally forgot. You can actually read issues 1 and 2 online for free. It's a web comic.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. You mentioned it was started off as a web comic, and
Yeah,
and so that'll be a good way for people who are maybe interested in checking out 3 to kind of get all in on it.
yeah. You can, that's you can absolutely just go check out issues 1 and 2 and um, see what we're talking about. You don't even have to really buy the PDF, but I believe in it so much that once you read the story and see the artwork, you'll
Oh,
definitely
I can vouch for that. Like, it's much better. It's much better to have this comic in print, in my opinion, because the art on the page looks so amazing. So I personally vouch for that as well. And even if you want to go digital, definitely support these awesome guys because they're creating some really great stuff here. I think you'll be
yeah.
able to see that for yourself.
Thank you.
And oh, you're welcome, man. And thank you for again for coming on, man. It was great to have you on here.
Yeah.
Also, you guys are on Instagram as well. But
Yep.
most importantly, I want to plug the Kickstarter one more time and put the link out there. They're so close to their goal right now, just about $400 away, I think, just about or so. And so get them over that finish line and keep pushing them in. Get those print books. Get your digital if you like it. But definitely, please back these guys because I cannot wait for more of these, and I just want them to keep making it forever. So please go check it out. And thanks again for everyone who watched in the video in the chat and hung out with us today. And thank you for joining us today, Newton. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Take care.
All right, bye, guys.